Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
O Rama, I shall narrate to you how this creation appears to have emerged from the one pure, undivided cosmic being, even as dreams appear in the consciousness of a sleeping person. This universe is in fact the eternal, effulgent, infinite consciousness, which generates within itself the knowable, with an idea concerning its form, and with an inquiry concerning itself. Thus is space brought into being. When, after a considerable time, the consciousness of creation becomes strong in the infinite being, the future Jiva arises within it, and the infinite abandons, as it were, its supreme state to limit itself as the Jiva. However, even then, Brahman remains the infinite, and there is no real transformation into any of these. In space, the faculty of sound manifests itself. Then comes into being egotism, which is vital to further creation of the universe, and at the same time, the factor known as time. All this happens merely by the creative thought inherent in the cosmic being, not as a real transformation of the infinite. By the similar exercise of the creative thought, air is created. Consciousness, which is surrounded by all these, is called Jiva, which gives rise to all different elements in this world. There are 14 planes of existence, each of which has its own inhabitants. And all of these are the manifestation of the creative thought of consciousness. Even so, when this consciousness thought, I am light, the sources of light like sun, etc. were instantly created. Similarly, water and earth were created. All these fundamental elements continue to act upon one another as experiencer and experience, and the entire creation came into being like ripples on the surface of the ocean, and they are interwoven and mixed up so efficiently that they cannot be extricated from one another till the cosmic dissolution. These material appearances are ever changing, and the reality exists unchanged. Since these are all linked with consciousness, they instantly become gross physical substance, though all these are the infinite consciousness alone, which has undergone no change whatsoever. The 5 elements are the seeds of which the world is a tree, and the eternal consciousness is the seed for the elements. As is the seed, so is the fruit. Therefore, the world is nothing but Brahman, the Absolute. Rama, I shall now tell you how the Jiva came to dwell in this body. The Jiva thought, I am atomic in nature and stature, so it became atomic in nature. Yet, it only apparently became so on account of its imagination, which was false. Even as one may dream that he is dead and he has another body, this Jiva, which in truth had an extremely subtle body of pure consciousness, now begins to identify itself with grossness, and so becomes gross. Even as a mountain is reflected in a mirror and is seen as if it were in the mirror, the Jiva reflects the external objects and activities, and soon begins to think that they are all within it, and that he is the doer of the actions and the experiencer of the experiences. When the jiva wishes to see, the eyes were formed in the gross body. Even so, the skin, ears, tongue, nose, organs of action are formed as a result of the appropriate desire arising in the jiva. Thus, in the body abides the jiva, which has the extremely subtle body of consciousness, imagining various external physical experiences and various internal psychological experiences. Thus, resting in the unreal, which however appears to be real, Brahman, now appearing to be Jiva, becomes confused. This same Brahman, which has come to regard itself as the finite Jiva and endowed with a physical body, apprehends the external world, which on account of veil of ignorance appears to be composed of matter. Someone thinks he is Brahma. Someone else thinks he is something else. In this manner, the jiva imagines it is this or that, and so binds itself to the illusion of the world appearances. Rama, there is neither one jiva nor many, nor a conglomerate of jiva. Jiva is only a name. What exists is only Brahman. Because of its omnipotence, his thought form materializes. One alone appears as diverse on account of ignorance. We do not experience this ignorance which disappears on inquiry, even as darkness vanishes when light is brought in to look at it. Brahman alone is the cosmic soul, and the millions of jiva. There is naught else. But all this is mere imagination or thought. Even now, nothing has ever been created. The pure infinite space alone exists. Brahma, the creator, could not create the world as it was before the cosmic dissolution. For Brahma attained final liberation then. Cosmic consciousness alone exists now and ever. In it are no worlds, no created beings. That consciousness, reflected in itself, appears to be creation, even as unreal nightmares produce real results. This world seems to give rise to a sense of reality in a state of ignorance. When true wisdom arises, this unreality vanishes. By the apprehension of the perceived or the knowable, consciousness becomes the jiva, and it apparently involves in repetitive history. When the false notion of a knowable apart from a knower ceases, it regains its equilibrium. The mysterious power of consciousness, which, in an inexplicable and miraculous way, produces this infinite diversity of names and forms, is known as egotism. When egotism has come into being, that egotism entertains notions of various elements that constitute this universe, and they arise. In unity, diversity arises. Rama, give up all these false notions of I and you. By renouncing even the notion of a jiva and its own cause. When all these have gone, you will realize the truth, which is in the middle between the real and the unreal. The consciousness is not knowable. When it wishes to become the knowable, it is known as the universe. Mind, intellect, egotism, the five great elements, and the world. All these innumerable names and forms are all consciousness alone. A man and his life and his work are indistinguishable. the static and the kinetic manifestation of the same factor, Jiva and the mind, etc., are all vibrations in the consciousness. This is the truth. People like to argue and confuse each other. They are indeed confused. But, O Rama, we are beyond confusion. Changes in the unchanging are imagined by the ignorant and deluded people. But in the vision of sages who have self-knowledge, no change whatsoever has taken place in the consciousness. When the notion of an external knowable has been removed, self-knowledge arises. And when, in it, there is a notion of inertia or ignorance, the state of deep sleep has come into it. Hence, since consciousness alone exists at all times, it may be said that space exists and does not exist. The world exists and does not exist. Even as heat is to fire, whiteness is to the conch shell, firmness is to the mountain, liquidity is to water, butter is to the milk, coolness is to the ice, brightness is to illumination, oil is to mustard seed, flow is to the river, sweetness is to honey, ornament is to gold, aroma is to a flower, the universe is to consciousness. The world exists because consciousness is, and the world is the body of consciousness. There is no differentiation, no distinction, and no division. Hence, the universe can be said to be both real and unreal. Real because of the reality of the consciousness, which is its own reality, and unreal because the universe does not exist as a universe, independent of the consciousness. But because of the unreality of universe, it cannot be said that its own cause, namely the consciousness, is also unreal. Such a statement would only be a set of words with no meaning, for it runs counter to our experience, and the existence of consciousness cannot be denied. At this stage, the evening set in, and the assembly dispersed. With this, we finish today's chapter. See you again.